Hello everyone, welcome. In this video I want to discuss Starscream from Transformers Armada. I want to express my love for this character, and I also want to cover his development, why he changes sides in Season 3, as well as some of his best moments in Season 4. I hope that this video can help make it clear why Starscream is the best Armada character. In Season 1, Starscream does start out a little bland, but I must say that I really do love his design, especially the detail that his left wing blade turns into his sword. I also love the fact that the primary weapon of Starscream in the Armada series is a sword, whether it be his wing blade or the Starsaber sword. I think that this really does help to separate him from other incarnations. His fight with Demolisher starts the strive for being the right hand man of Megatron, and I would say episode 5 is where Starscream feels a little more unique and interesting as a character. Of course, by episode 6, I really did start to root for him and became more invested in his character. Episode 6 is also when Megatron acknowledges him as his second in command. The rest of Season 1, I would say Starscream remains consistently good, but nothing substantial happens with his character. For the Season 2 content, Starscream opens this season with a pretty good fight against Hotshot. I do believe that Starscream losing so badly, and twice in the same episode at that, to the Starsaber sword, really fueled his rematch in Episode 3. I also like how Starscream's ego just continues to rise as he acquires the Starsaber sword. Episode 4 would eventually lead to what would eventually lead to Starscream leaving the Decepticons, as the Decepticons conspire against him and manipulate the situation to make him look bad and forfeit the Starsaber sword. In episode 10, he gets a full-on physical beating for something that wasn't even his fault. For the longest time, episode 10 was my favorite Starscream-based episode, as he asks what they're fighting for, and that when you break it all down, the Autobots and Decepticons aren't all that different. I think Sideways is also one of the main pillars for Starscream leaving, as he really manipulates and pits Starscream and Megatron against each other. Episode 10 ends with the first of two proper duels between Starscream and Megatron. This fight was honestly really great to see, as Starscream really gets a beating, but Megatron is also rather fair. We also get to see the seeds being sown for their rematch, as Starscream's closer to Megatron's strength than either of them realized. Despite Sideways' manipulation, we end this episode with an action from Starscream that I think shows his devoted loyalty. He has the opportunity to stab Megatron in the back, but instead chooses to protect him, blocking Blur's attack. This duel really changed both of them, as we saw Starscream show devout loyalty to Megatron, but also Megatron assigned Starscream to Thrust as his number 2 in episode 12, clearly putting more faith in his ability after the duel. Another small detail is how, in the first episode of Season 3, Starscream finds out Sideways is the traitor. This would later be paralleled when he realizes Thrust is the traitor, really showing how incredibly loyal and reliable that Starscream is to Megatron. Jumping ahead in Season 3 to Episode 7, Starscream is pretty much betrayed by his own allies. Left to fight alone in the rain, he screams for his allies, but no one is there. Then once the Autobots leave, he really is alone, yelling, asking why Megatron had abandoned him. In Episode 8, we get his kindest scene yet, when he invites the Minicons to join in the energy bath with him, showing that deep down, he really does care for the Minicons in a way more akin to the Autobots. After this scene in Episode 8, we get a moment between Starscream and Demolisher. Now, they have had at least one physical back and forth in each season, but this time, all Starscream has to do is put his hand on his wing blade and Demolisher backs down, really showing that Starscream's grown in strength to the point that only Megatron can beat him down, Decepticon-wise, of course. The next scene is the nail on the coffin, when it comes to the Decepticons treating him horribly, which will very soon cause him to switch sides. Megatron and Thrust are really going at it, admitting that they left him, saying they will send him in first next time. Finally, and for good reason, Starscream snaps, attacking Megatron, and he actually fends off all of the Decepticons at the same time. As Starscream is being pursued by Tidal Wave, the Autobots show up, and Starscream actually makes the choice to give Optimus the Starsaber sword. At the end of this episode, Starscream will formally join the Autobots. We also get another round of Starscream versus Hotshot, resulting in somewhat of a partnership between the two. Episode 9 features the raid on the Decepticon base, in which we see that Starscream doesn't listen to Optimus and directly disobeys orders. However, he does have a good team up at the end with Hotshot against Megatron. Episode 10 really shows the definitive change in Starscream. Although he starts out the episode on his revenge quest against Megatron, twice in this episode, Starscream questions what he's doing. All he wants to do is defeat Megatron. I think this really shows the definitive goal shift from being the strongest in the universe or the leader of the Decepticons to just simply wanting to win against Megatron. Jetfire also gives a speech to Starscream that I think contributes to the change in his character, explaining while Decepticons fight alone, Autobots fight as a team and they rely on one another. Starscream actually encourages the Minicon to fight for the right cause and to join the Autobots. This really highlighted the change in Starscream, even compared to the last episode when he disobeyed Optimus's orders about the Minicons. We extend this character arc further by Starscream bringing back a geode from Mars for the kids when even Jetfire wouldn't do so. Episode 10 starts my second favorite dynamic in the show and my favorite human and Transformer relationship, that being the one between Alexis and Starscream. Episode 11 features honestly quite a sad scene, even though it's probably not meant to be, with Starscream receiving his first gift ever. I really love the back and forth between Starscream and Alexis. The Autobots, aside from Optimus and Scavenger, don't really treat him the best, or even with much respect at all. And of the kids, the boys are super excited to be around him. Alexis is the only one who's really trying to understand him and teach him to be better. A role perhaps best described as Alexis acting like an older sister to Starscream. She sees through his comments about the Minicons. She's the one who's the most understanding person next to Optimus, and she's the only one actually trying to teach Starscream to be a better person. A small scene that didn't need to be here is the mini training scene he has when he's swinging his sword. Usually he does this when he's full of rage, but this time he's thinking about the kids and how nice they've been to him. Then Starscream delivers an unbelievably real comeback when he's convicted of stealing the Minicons. Guilty, huh? I don't think it matters what I say because you've already convicted me. But thanks for trying, Hotshot. Please, let's face facts. I am much different than you. I was programmed as a Decepticon, and I don't apologize for that. I have tried my best to understand the way you and the others think, but I must admit it was a failed experiment. I honestly didn't think we'd be getting this from Starscream, considering what the other incarnations are like. He really is a character who was brought up differently but is trying to understand their culture. And even now, 3 Autobots confront him, convicting him of conspiring with the enemy when he took it upon himself to drive the enemy away. When Starscream confronts Thrust, I love that he has the blanket from the kids tied to the Star Saber. Thrust really plays with his head here, which is why I don't entirely believe he speaks of Starscream's intentions. I will touch on this again later during his speech in episode 8 of season 4. Despite the betrayal, he even says a silent thank you to the kids for all that they did for him, as we see the blanket fly away in the wind. In episode 12, we get some of the genuine relationship between Megatron and Starscream. Starscream brought the 2 remaining weapons, and Megatron speaks on Starscream's behalf against Thrust, and even tells him to take some time off. Starscream is very hesitant to destroy the Autobot base and even Earth. He still acknowledges the kids as his friends despite the face turn. Now we enter season 4, where Starscream will reach his peak. In episode 3, the Minicons heal Starscream, turning him into Thundercracker. I'm still going to refer to him as Starscream, but I do think this is very fitting considering out of the original Seekers from G1, Thundercracker was the one who was questioning the Decepticon cause the most. Starscream really picks up on Thrust over the next 2 episodes, even calling him crazy. Then at the end of episode 5, he calls Thrust out for his treachery, and even jumps on the pursuit for him. When Thrust points the Requiem blaster at the kids, Starscream lunges to stop him and is shot through the abdomen. But the Minicons do reverse time so that Starscream's able to stop Thrust, and he even chooses to protect the kids from the falling rubble as opposed to chasing Thrust. Later on, during this chase scene, everyone leaves to chase Thrust and Sideways, leaving Starscream behind, except for Alexis. I really like the conversation they have here, with Alexis explaining to Starscream what a friend is and why she chose to stay behind for him. As Starscream is flying out of the surface, out of Unicron to get to the surface, she's attacked and loses her pennant, despite Starscream telling her that she needs to leave it. She jumps off anyways in order to get it. And this necklace is, of course, the Mars rock that Starscream brought back for the kids. Now, in my opinion, this has to be the biggest letdown of the series, English dub wise. As Alexis says, it is made from the rock from Cybertron. Um, I think that this really adds to the relationship that both of them have, being that how special it is to her, and he was the one to give it to her. Now, this line was changed in the Legends of Micron, or more simply the subversion, but I think that we still could have gotten more from this scene in general. At the very least, I am glad that it's here, and taking the Legends of Micron canon, we can add it to the ever building relationship between Starscream and Alexis. As the Decepticons and Autobots part ways, Starscream leaves. When he's asked to join, he doesn't want to risk betraying them a second time. It's clear that Starscream has changed and that the Autobots, and especially Alexis, are important to him, especially given all that she's done for him. His final words to Alexis really show how he viewed her. He acknowledges that she trusted him and that he thanks her. This, along with the Optimus line in his speech next episode, show that he really paid attention and noticed how these two treated him different than everyone and treated him with more kindness. As we saw through season 3 and 4, Alexis treated Starscream with kindness and treated him better than the Autobots or the Decepticons, and it's clear that her influence and actions really touched him and changed him. Now we get episode 8, my favorite episode in the Armada series. In episode 8, we see Starscream trying to convince Megatron to join the Autobots against Unicron. Starscream is pleading, and trying to save everyone. We see him standing in front of the Megatron statue, and throughout the series, he is constantly questioning what to do and who to trust. But here, we see him finally make up his mind. He decides to protect the humans and moves to enact his plan with conviction in his heart. Starscream interrupts the fight with Galvatron and Optimus. Again, he asks Megatron to join Optimus against Unicron. Even when he talks to Optimus, he mentions that he means no disrespect towards him, which is clearly very different from him disobeying Optimus's orders in Season 3. We then get the rematch between Galvatron and Starscream, calling all the way back from Season 2. This fight is much more evenly matched than that fight was, and Starscream really outclasses Galvatron at one point. Galvatron tells Starscream to stand down and to give up. However, I feel this comes from a place more so of Galvatron not wanting to fight his trusted subordinate because he actually does care about him, as opposed to Galvatron fearing Starscream. We end this duel with Starscream and Galvatron attacking each other at the same time. Starscream actually forces Galvatron to kneel before him. Even Galvatron asks where Starscream had gotten all of this power. Now we get a very emotional and important quote from Starscream. "A very long time ago, I swore an oath to you, Galvatron, and I could never break that oath. All of this could have been prevented if you had just given me some respect. I tried to gain favor from you, but nothing was ever good enough. No matter how many battles I fought, you always found fault. Then I saw how Optimus treated his men, and I realized that he was a leader of integrity unlike you." Starscream then asks Megatron to join Optimus again. I really have to point out how spectacular the animation is for this next scene, as well as how wonderfully the soundtrack complements it. Starscream rips the Starsaber sword from his chest, activating his proton cannons, but ejecting Swindle so that the Minicon can survive. He then fires his proton cannons at Unicron. Unicron retaliates, firing lightning down at Starscream, hitting Starscream, disintegrating him, and he dies instantaneously. We see Alexis's pennant crack. Alexis runs to look out the window, frantic, and a look of worry on her face. We see Starscream's blast. Just before it hits Unicron, it dissipates, not even reaching him. Optimus and Galvatron stand there, in front of the crater where Starscream once stood, his wing blade sword stabbed in the ground behind it. Optimus comments on how brave of a soldier he was, and Megatron, or Galvatron, reflects on Starscream's final words. Galvatron turns to hand Optimus the Starsaber sword, which would be stolen. However, next episode, Galvatron would take Starscream's words to heart and join Autobots to launch an all-out attack against Unicron. Alexis is absolutely distraught, learning of Starscream's death, crying and running away. She screams, "Why?" looking at the pennant, and Rad hugs her, comforting her. In the final episode, when all of the kids go back to Earth and they say goodbye to the Autobots, we see Alexis holding the pendant of the rock that Starscream gave her. This does end Starscream's character. However, I want to wrap up this video discussing a few things, namely Starscream's final speech and how it lines up with the rest of the series. Starscream says that he swore an oath and that he could never break it. Now, technically, yes. For a brief time, he did leave the Decepticons. But this is because he was physically and mentally abused in that environment, and the Decepticons were plotting against him. Starscream didn't do this maliciously to deceive Megatron. He also says that he wanted to gain favor or respect. And we do see Starscream act ego-elated at times, similar to his representation in G1 and other depictions of Starscream. And there are other times where he says he wants to destroy Megatron. But if we pay attention to these scenes or those episodes, at some point in the episode, either Sideways or Thrust has a conversation with Starscream in order to try to manipulate him and pit him against Megatron. And when neither of them are present, we get some scenes of respect and camaraderie between the two. And being that had the two of them never intervened, they actually could have turned out to be quite an incredible duo. Starscream also brings up how Optimus was a leader of integrity. Even when the other Autobots were skeptical, Optimus was never one to judge. Starscream really did his best to try to win Megatron's respect. And in the end, he chose to win over Galvatron in order to save the kids who'd shown him kindness, as well as for the greater good of all Transformers. He truly fought and died for both sides, and for the greater good of the Autobots, the Decepticons, and his friends. That is why I do think that Starscream is the best Armada character, that he has the best character growth, and I truly do love and appreciate his death and what it had as far as greater ramifications for the series. I do hope that you all enjoyed this video, and that's going to be all from me today. Bye, guys.